Tensura What If? Silver Timeline by CBCTEBAS Chapter 81 Recollection 2. I had both Sophia and Albus called into my office, forcing Fobio to stay as he was too agitated to run to them. A knock on the door was heard. Rimuru-sama, may we come in? The voice outside was Albus, the golden serpent. I replied that they could come in, and both the golden snake and the white tiger entered, sitting on the sofa with Fobio. Now, Fobio, I turned to him. He was still sweating profusely, probably forcing himself to stay conscious before telling us what we needed to know. What did you want to say? Fobio forced himself to stand. I tried to have him sit down again, but he refused. This is what happened after everyone left. Fobio gave an overall summary of what happened. How overwhelmingly strong Milim was compared to Carrion, and how Demon Lord Frey came in to land the finishing blow. I thought for a few seconds, processing the entire story. Well, firstly, you sure got lucky to survive Milim's attack, I said with a wry smile towards Fobio. Luckily for him, he had transported near the cave where Vesta was. If they took his body, he's probably still alive. If you want to rescue him, we'll come and help. Personally, I don't understand the point of Milim attacking Eurazania. Furthermore, for someone to intervene in her one-on-one fight. It's strange. This isn't like Milim at all. If we're talking about strangeness, I'm surprised that Demon Lord Frey let Fobio go. Harpies are naturally born with very sharp eyesight. Someone like the Queen of Harpies not noticing him is impossible. Sophia added to my words. So what does Demon Lord Frey want then? I had Xian bring me a map and then included Murin, who was once a subordinate of Clayman, in the conversation. We found out that Clayman did meet up with Milim, and that she was being controlled by him. Albus slammed her hands on the table. Then, he had Demon Lord Milim eradicate Eurazania? The Beastketeers were eager to march towards Clayman's doorstep. Luckily, I persuaded them to remain rational for now. Sue, I called his name. Just as I expected, he appeared from the shadows. He kneeled in front of me, beside him was Soka. The three Beastketeers watched silently from behind as I gave my orders. Rimuru-sama, I will gather information on Clayman, Sue said. With those words, they disappeared into the shadows. I turned to the trio of lycanthropes. It is good to be ready for battle, but we first need information. Rest your strength for now. Once we're ready, we will help you. Thank you very much, Rimuru-sama. Albus bowed her head. The other two, Sophia and Fobio, followed suit. Sophia cracked her knuckles. We will not forget this debt. Rimuru-sama, she grinned, proclaiming those words. I could already tell they would do everything they could to repay us. All you need is to call on Rimuru-sama. The Beast Corps are in your hands, Fobio said more formally than Sophia. I guess he still felt embarrassed about what happened between us. I simply nodded to the three. 3 days later, Sue made contact with some of Clayman's people. I called for a meeting that included the Tempest executives and the three Beastketeers of Eurazania. We all sat down in the meeting room, our faces serious. Well, most of us. Gobta was there, happily eating chips and swaying his feet. He wasn't tall enough to reach the ground. How carefree, how enviable. Gobta-kun, I shouted to get his attention. The chip in his hand fell as he quickly stood up from his seat, straightening his back. Yes, he answered involuntarily, everyone either looking at him or at me, who had called for him. Well, I didn't really know what to do right now. I was just messing with him so I wouldn't be jealous anymore. Take this seriously, I said, crossing my arms and closing my eyes as if to say, end of discussion. According to my magic sense, he sat down again, but this time, he remained in place, not eating anymore. Everyone finally arrived in the room, and the meeting officially started. Sue showed via thought communication that an army of Claymans was currently stationed in Milim's territory. 30,000 Majin, led by someone on the level of the Beastketeers. 80% of the army are rank B, while the rest are A-. There are also some who reached rank A. An army? Where are they planning to go? I asked, puzzled. Why would they have an army in Milim's territory? Does this confirm that Milim really is mind-controlled? We still do not have definite proof. All we have confirmed is that they are collecting food from the residents of Milim-sama's territory. Fobio raised his hand. Do you think they plan on coming here? Maybe they realized that Eurazania's refugees are flowing to Tempest. That's a good point. If they know we found out that Clayman was the mastermind, it would be best to eliminate us all. But why so roundabout? Couldn't he just send Milam? Or is that not an option? In terms of strength and number, we have quite the advantage if we're only talking about Tempest. Aside from the Kijans, who are special A rank, most of our main forces range around B+ and A-. But in terms of numbers, we only have about 4,000 hobgoblins and 10,000 high orcs. The rest are in the triple digits, like Gabiru's Dragonood, 100, and Gobta's Goblin Riders, 100. But with Eurazania's elite soldiers, who are combat ready, from what I was told, 10,000 are ready to participate in battle. Under normal circumstances, they're all B rank, and if they use beastification, they would evolve into A-. Not to mention the rest of the lycanthropes spread across the settlements in Eurazania, another 10,000. Even if we're lower in terms of numbers, we have overwhelming power overall. This is a weak army, everyone nodded in agreement. They seemed to understand what I meant. If this army tried to invade us, we would win. Benimaru was thinking deeply, his hand on his chin. What if he wasn't planning on coming here? What? I had someone bring a map and placed it on the table so everyone could see. I trailed my fingers from Milam's Forgotten Dragon towards Tempest. Then, I moved my finger back towards Milam's place and continued to move it forward. Eurazania. My words seemed to grab everyone's attention. Eurazania? But why would he attack there? The place only has the settlements and the 10,000 warriors who were spread out. Clayman would not want to be in a disadvantageous position in battle. So, he will most likely eliminate all threats first, Murin chimed in, invited for her knowledge as a former subordinate of Clayman. Damn that Clayman! Sophia shouted angrily. We won't make it in time even if we go now. Even if this is only speculation, it's better to go on the offensive in the face of an army like this. We could bring the battlefield to Eurazania so the civilians in Tempest won't be involved. Call me heartless towards the residents of Eurazania, but my people are more important. Calm down. We will go to them. We may not be able to save everyone, but we will make sure to save who we can, I said to everyone in the room, then turned to Benimaru. Prepare everyone who will be going with us. Make sure to only bring those who can travel fast and can go for days straight running. Leave the rest to guard Tempest. Understood. He stood up and ran outside. Rigard, help Benimaru with the necessary logistics, he followed. Sue, I turned towards him next. Have your clone that is hiding in Eurazania inform the nearby settlements about the upcoming invasion. We are still not 100% sure about this, after all. Have them survey Clayman's movements while they group themselves and march towards us. This way, we could meet up with them and lessen the casualties. This is fine, right? I asked the three beastmen, who were watching as I gave my orders. They are in your hands, Rimuru-sama. Good. If we are correct that Clayman plans to exterminate the residents of Eurazania, then we will bring the battlefield to them. Even if we are wrong and they plan to raid Tempest instead, we will already be at their location. Unfortunately, we cannot save everyone, no matter what we do. Sue, devise a plan that can save the highest number of survivors. You can ask Benimaru and Hikuro for advice. Understood. Rimuru-sama. Sue left with Hikuro in tow, following my orders. You three, prepare your beastmen who will be coming. Geld, so are you with the high orcs. Gabble, he stood up nervously. Talk with Albus, Benimaru, and Sue. We will have the Dragonood and the beastmen who can fly go as soon as possible. I will be coming, of course. We can probably reach the place much faster than those who simply ran. Understood. Rimuru-sama. For anyone who has opinions on my orders, let's talk as we move. Everyone nodded and left the room. We were preparing to go to Eurazania and save as many beastmen as we could. We sped through the air. Ronga carried Shion on his back, with Benimaru, Gabble and his friends, the Beastketeers, and the flying beastmen racing towards Eurazania at top speed. If we pushed ourselves, we could probably reach the destination in less than a day, praying to minimize the damage as much as possible. Huh? Did anyone else see that figure watching us just now? I noticed someone observing us briefly as we flew past, several kilometers away. Sue, send someone to investigate that spot. I think we're being watched, I informed Sue, hoping it was just my imagination. Upon arriving at Eurazania, the vanguard, about 3,000 strong, had already arrived ahead of the others. Despite our numerical disadvantage, I believed Benimaru, the Beastketeers, and I could handle the enemy army on our own, not to mention Xian, Ranga, and the other seasoned fighters among us. "Oh, it's the Beastketeers." A bear beastman ran forward and bowed respectfully to the trio. Over 7,000 warriors from various settlements had gathered at this location. The remainder were either en route or already engaged with Clayman's forces. Albus stepped forward, addressing Talos, a warrior from the bear beastmen. "Talos, brief us on the situation. How are we holding up?" Everyone listened intently as Talos, one of the warriors stationed at the settlements, outlined the dire situation. "What?" I exclaimed in frustration. It seemed my suspicions about being observed were correct. Clayman had been one step ahead of us here. It turned out we weren't the only ones who hurried to Eurazania. Clayman's army had marched swiftly, already devastating multiple settlements of weaker beastmen and slaves. As of now, all bordering settlements between Demon Lord Milam's Forgotten Dragons and Eurazania have been razed, Talos reported grimly. The scouts confirmed they took no prisoners. The casualties are estimated in the hundreds, if not thousands. The beastmen with us gritted their teeth in fury. I understood their anger. If these were my people, I feel more than just rage, especially after my own experience with the Falmouth army. I was fortunate to have arrived in time. Most of the settlements that weren't destroyed had been evacuated, with the remaining warriors buying precious time with their lives. In a matter of hours, the combined forces of Tempest and Eurazania would be fully assembled. Once everyone was in position, Benimaru took charge, leading us into battle. Using the beastmen warriors as bait, we set traps for the scattered groups of Clayman's army. It appeared they had deployed their forces haphazardly. "Benimaru, I'll leave everything to you. There's a strong presence up ahead. Until they move, I can't reveal myself." I sensed a powerful individual as we neared the main enemy force. At the rear of the army stood a figure radiating immense power. Was this their leader? No, according to the reports, Yamza wasn't this formidable. "Who's that?" "They must be from the Dragon Faithful, Milam Sama's worshippers." Dragon worshippers. If Milam is being controlled, they wouldn't dare defy her, I sighed, realizing they were indeed Milam's subordinates, and formidable ones at that. Confirmed. Analysis shows the individual possesses more magical energy than the master. Indeed, stronger even than me, and not just in terms of magical energy. If they were affiliated with Milam, they were likely extraordinarily powerful. Benimaru's army clashed with Clayman's forces. The two sides collided violently, the cacophony of battle echoing across the landscape. Ah! I sensed Sophia, Xian, and Gabel rushing towards the powerful figure. Damn it! Those three were engaging an opponent they shouldn't underestimate. Benimaru observed from above as the rest of us found our own matches. Albus confronted Yamza, the leader of the middle finger as Murin called him. Sophia, Xian, and Gabel faced off against the Dragon Faithful. Then there were Fobio, Geld, and Ranga, engaging. Wait, who were those eccentric figures? And weren't they surprisingly strong? How could such ludicrous-looking individuals possess such power? Great Sage, how strong are they? Analysis: stronger than Demon Lord Carrion. But I'm not even sure if I could defeat Carrion. And there are two of them. Ah, Sophia's group is struggling. Well, that was to be expected. Since there appeared to be no animosity between the two groups, I left them to their battle. The eccentric figures, however, could pose a significant threat. Benimaru, I'm going to assist Geld and Ranga, I announced, then flew towards their location. As I approached, I saw Fobio, Geld, and Ranga battered and bruised from the battle. The little girl with pink hair and the corpulent man with green hair seemed unscathed. I watched from concealment, waiting for an opportune moment. When the girl attacked both Fobio and Ranga, the man prepared an attack, leaving himself vulnerable. I leapt out of hiding and struck, intercepting his attack and severing his right arm. He recoiled in surprise upon realizing my presence, while the girl also backed away. Ho ho ho, if it isn't Rimuru-sama of the Jura Tempest Federation, the man chuckled, clutching his injured arm. Your presence here is quite the honor. Yay, Rimuru-sama. The slime who defeated the Orc Lord. The girl exclaimed with excitement. What should we do, footman? Clayman's army is finished at this rate. But we can't confront them just yet, Tyr. Footman nodded thoughtfully after healing his severed arm. You should all be grateful. Tyr turned and struck a pose. You three are lucky, Rimuru-sama intervened. Otherwise, you'd be dead by now. Although even with him here, I think we could take him on together. Ho ho ho, Tyr, we shouldn't be so presumptuous. After the clowns retreated, the trio slumped down, exhausted. Are you all right? I handed them some healing potions. They drank them gratefully, although they still looked fatigued. Thank you very much, Rimuru-sama. You saved us, Rimuru-sama. Master, forgive us for being too weak. They apologized profusely as they struggled to regain their strength. I had them return to camp to rest. Then, I sensed something ominous. Report, Charybdis signature confirmed. What, Charybdis? Didn't Milim defeat it? Signature indicates a fragment of the original Charybdis. Ah, so it's not the complete creature. Hey, great sage, can I defeat it? Confirmed. Weaken it sufficiently, and gluttony can be employed. I can use gluttony on it. Good, that means we can avoid further casualties. Most of Clayman's forces were either dead or captured by now, anyway. Benimaru, yes. Rimuru-sama. Gather everyone for a coordinated assault on Charybdis. Then leave the rest to me. I ascended high into the sky and approached Charybdis, which was wreaking havoc below. Even as a fragment, it was capable of significant destruction. Suddenly, I sensed a gathering of magical energy nearby. From afar, I saw Benimaru channeling a massive surge of energy, launching it towards Charybdis. In response, Charybdis fired an energy beam from its eyes. As the two attacks collided, I unleashed black lightning from behind, aiming to wound and distract Charybdis. It retaliated by launching scales towards me, but I held firm and managed to pierce its hide. The combined assault from everyone broke through Charybdis's energy beam, damaging its left wing and throwing it off balance. It fired its beam indiscriminately in response to the damage. Devour everything, gluttony, I declared, standing before it. The first thing I devoured was the energy beam itself, followed by its head. Despite its resistance, it took over an hour to fully consume the creature. With Charybdis defeated, we spoke with the dragon faithful, who returned to their territory. They seemed to be the strongest among their people and were eager to depart. I instructed Geld's high orcs to establish a large camp for refugees from the surviving settlements and another for the surviving prisoners of war, leaving it to the beastmen to decide their fate. After attending to other matters, a few of us returned to Tempest. Months passed, and numerous events unfolded following the battle in Eurazania. One significant development occurred a week later. Carrion had returned. He arrived on his own, visibly troubled, before delivering news that Clayman had been killed by Milim. Apparently, Milim had been pretending to be controlled to find someone, but had yet to identify them. Look, don't blame me. It's all Clayman's fault. Milim herself insisted, leaving Carrion to silently mourn amid the devastation of Eurazania's capital. Don't worry, I'll have some of my subordinates help with rebuilding, I assured him, recognizing that while we hadn't saved all the beastmen, we had managed to save some, a significant achievement under the circumstances. Yeah, he wiped his tears, then straightened up and issued commands to his subordinates. It turned out that Carrion and Frey had also become Milim's subordinates. Technically, they were no longer demon lords, but instead answered directly to Milim. Milim seemed reluctant at first, but was evidently swayed by their persistence. With Milim at the helm, we could potentially foster friendly relations not only with Eurazania but also with Frey's territory. The news of these developments was globally broadcast. Imagine being so influential that your actions at Walpurgis were broadcast worldwide. Currently, I sat in Yuki's office, discussing plans to bring the children to Tempest, as promised. By the way, Rimuru-san, how are negotiations with the Western nations progressing? Yuki inquired, flipping through one of the manga volumes I had given him. His secretary, Kigali, placed tea on the table for us before bowing and exiting, a gesture I appreciated, though it made me wish Shion could be as formal. It's been challenging. Aside from Blumend, I'm finding it difficult to establish communication with the other nations. We've confirmed their interest in our products. Fortunately, but a few still view us with suspicion after the Falmouth incident. Truthfully, after the conflict with Falmouth, I had nearly given up on forming alliances with human nations. Thankfully, Fuse and King Gazel had been invaluable in offering their perspectives. Rumors of Milam's presence in our nation also helped dissuade any further aggression. No nation wanted to risk provoking a demon lord. Let's not forget, I've been helping too, Yuki remarked, setting aside the manga to pick up his tea. The branches of the Freedom Guilds scattered across the continent are promoting our products and spreading positive word about Tempest. I was grateful for Yuki's assistance. His extensive network made it easier to navigate these diplomatic challenges. He had left his mark far and wide, which made tasks like these seem effortless for him. However, Falmouth seems to hold a grudge against you, Yuki continued thoughtfully. From what I gather, they're a major obstacle preventing some nations from seeking treaties with you. Several factors were hindering our relations with other nations. Falmouth's influence was significant. They pressured other nations to remain silent, fearing consequences from Dwargon. Additionally, the church posed another hurdle. Most nations rely on holy knights for protection against monsters. Aligning with this can brand them as heretics and jeopardize their security. As long as the church sees monsters as adversaries, we won't make much progress, I grumbled in frustration. You mentioned being a reincarnated individual. That should count for something. It proves you weren't always a monster but once human, Yuki nodded thoughtfully. I had indeed publicly disclosed my reincarnation, mainly because I wanted my friends to know. Their reactions had been my primary concern. A knock interrupted our conversation. Kigali entered with 5 children who rushed towards me. Sensei. I had missed them dearly. It has been months since we last saw each other. With everything that had transpired, Eurazania's reconstruction and the aftermath, I hadn't been able to leave Tempest until now, free from lurking threats. I'm back as promised. I greeted them warmly, though I noticed a hint of frustration in their faces. I wondered why. What took you so long? Kenya asked, sounding angry. It's been months. Yeah, Alice chimed in with a huff. You could have at least sent a letter. She turned her head, pouting. Gale and Ryota smiled wearily, clearly happy to see me. Chloe, on the other hand, clinging to me tightly, still muttering, Sensei. I decided to ignore her for now. A lot has happened. I scratched my head sheepishly, laughing. Yuki and I were just discussing the possibility of you all staying in Tempest. What, really? Yes, let's go. Hold on, we still have a lot to talk about. Like how long you'll be staying with me there and who will guard you guys, I said, raising a hand to emphasize the need for discussion. Hey, we don't need guards. We've gotten strong over these few months. I bet I could land a blow on you now, Sensei, Kenya declared confidently, punching the air to demonstrate. Right, let's spar, Sensei. We'll make you cry, Alice chimed in, mimicking a sword swing with exaggerated flourish. Yuki simply watched with a smile. I'm jealous, they don't cling to me like that, he remarked, gesturing to the children with a playful sigh. We discussed how long they would stay and decided they would remain in Tempest for at least a year. It seemed they couldn't find anyone stronger than them in school anymore, not even their instructors, which was becoming a problem. They needed someone stronger to prevent them from becoming arrogant with their powers. Welcome to Tempest. I presented as we walked towards the entrance of the capital, sweeping my hand towards the city gates with a proud smile. Shuna and a few goblinas stood ready to guide them to their new home. I had the place prepared long before I left to talk with Yuki. As they were guided to their new home, I returned to work, handling the dealings of our products with Bloomond and the exchange of fruits from Eurazania. Occasionally, I found time to play with the students, usually once every 2 or 3 days. Hakuro taught them the basics of fighting and swordsmanship, while Ryota received instruction in archery from another instructor. One day while playing, Sue appeared behind me and whispered something urgent. Rimuru-sama, the church has made its move, he reported quietly. All right, gather everyone for a meeting as soon as possible, I instructed, immediately shifting into a more serious demeanor. We quickly gathered to discuss our strategy and gather information about the approaching enemy. I contacted Yuki and Gazel to see what support they could offer us. Watch out for Hinata. That's all I can do. Sorry, Rimuru-san, they're also pressuring me here, Yuki admitted with a nervous smile, wiping his brow. Rimuru, do you need my help in battle? Gazel was more direct. They tried to convince us to betray you, and I take that as a declaration of war against Dwargan's honor. As much as I wanted to ask for help, we needed to handle this problem on our own. Carrion, could you take in my people for a few days? We will be having some visitors here, and I don't want them to get involved, I requested, knowing Carrion would understand. No problem, you can borrow my Beastketeers, Carrion replied promptly. A few days later, the Beastketeers and 1,000 beastmen arrived to guide Tempest residents out of the capital, ensuring their safety. With our army organized, we prepared to face the church's forces, which consisted of 100 paladins, 5,000 Templar knights, and 20,000 soldiers from various nations, not to mention 5,000 mercenaries. A total of 30,000 in their army. If my surveillance is accurate, we are outnumbered and outmatched in the quality of soldiers as well. They brought what people call the 10 Saints, with Hinata Sakaguchi leading the army, Sue reported, pointing to a map showing their current positions, including detachments surrounding Tempest. Alert! The enemy is likely planning to invoke large-scale magic on Tempest. We need units to stop those detachments, I said to the assembled group. Benimaru, form a team of 4 to disrupt whatever the detachments are planning. They likely intend to use large-scale magic against us. Understood, Rimuru-sama, Benimaru acknowledged with a nod. Everyone, in terms of numbers and quality, it's not an exaggeration to say we are at a disadvantage, I continued, addressing the gathered forces. That's why I will face their leader one-on-one. Once I defeat their leader, the rest of the army can fall back. But Rimuru-sama, Shion protested loudly, it's dangerous to fight someone like that alone. That's right, master. I shall accompany you, Hakuro offered, ready to support me. No, I'll fight alone. If I lose, make sure to retreat to Eurazania. I doubt they plan on invading a demon lord's territory, I insisted firmly, glancing at the Beastketeers who nodded in understanding. Everyone fell silent and accepted the plan. As my forces engaged the church's army and other nations' soldiers, I faced Hinata alone. She looked striking with her short hair, but I pushed aside any distracting thoughts. Can't we just talk this out? I attempted to reason, hoping to avoid a battle. As it turned out, talking only led to her swinging her sword at me. I barely dodged her strike, unsheathing my own sword to parry hers. We exchanged blows, but it felt like she was seeing through all my moves effortlessly. Her attacks were precise and calculated, unlike my more fluid and unpredictable style. She utilized techniques that rivaled Hakuro's skill, pushing me to defend with all my might. Suddenly, one of her attacks pierced me, causing pain that I hadn't expected. Ouch, I thought I had pain resistance. What's happening, Great Sage? I mentally exclaimed. Noted. Confirming direct damage to the soul. Pain resistance does not apply. Directly to the soul? How much more can I take before I die? Noted. 6 more strikes will kill you. Only 6. This woman is formidable. How can she wield such a devastating weapon? I retaliated with black lightning, aiming to catch her off guard, but she dodged and countered, knocking me back. I pressed on, but she redirected her sword towards my shoulder, landing another painful blow. Our duel stretched on. Minutes felt like hours as we exchanged furious attacks. Hinata's skill was undeniable, and I could sense she wasn't even fighting at full strength. I had already received 5 strikes. 2 more and I would surely die. Great Sage Sensei, help, I pleaded inwardly. Noted, switching to auto battle mode. The Great Sage adjusted my combat strategy, integrating Hinata's and Hakuro's styles into my movements with precision. My attacks became more focused, enhanced by black flame on my sword, aiming to disarm her. Hinata reacted to the change, showing a hint of surprise. She defended vigorously, but I managed to land several blows that forced her to reassess her strategy. Blocking, attacking, dodging, we continued to duel fiercely until Hinata managed to stab my leg. This is it, I thought grimly. I can't hold on much longer. Just as she prepared to deliver the final blow, someone unexpectedly stepped in. Wait, Chloe, the youngest of the children, rushed forward, standing between us. Don't kill him, he saved us. The monsters here aren't bad. The other children followed, pleading with Hinata to stop. Sensei is not bad, please, don't kill him. Miraculously, Hinata lowered her sword, her expression conflicted as she considered their words. "Leonard, order everyone to cease fighting," Hinata commanded her lieutenant, still looking at me. Leonard complied, and the battlefield fell silent. "Rimuru Tempest, due to certain circumstances, I must determine for myself if you truly pose no threat to humanity," Hinata announced, sheathing her sword. Her troops followed suit, visibly tense but respecting her decision. She and her top aides accompanied us back to Tempest's capital. The journey, usually lively, was now deserted as most residents had evacuated. Chloe remained by my side, with the other children surrounding me protectively, eyes wary of the knights. In a meeting at our capital, we discussed the origins and true reasons behind the war. Officially, it had been incited by the Western Council to eliminate what they saw as a growing threat to humanity: Tempest, the nation of monsters. Falmouth was the driving force behind this war, supported by more than half of the council members, Hinata explained, taking a seat at the large table where everyone had gathered. Falmouth, the same nation that invaded Tempest before. So this entire conflict was instigated by the Falmouth Kingdom? Do they wield that much influence over the council? I asked incredulously. The fact that one nation could sway the church into action, after months of a wait-and-see approach, was concerning. Mostly Falmouth, but fear of monsters also played a significant role in uniting other nations against you, Hinata continued. Especially given Tempest's rapid growth and the rumors of trading not only with human nations but also Demon Lord territories. "We do trade with Demon Lord territories," I confirmed, hoping this would mitigate their hostility. "We have relations with Eurazania, Falmouth, and the Forgotten Dragons territory. Personally, I count Demon Lords Milam, Carrion, and others as close friends. If I were to die or if Tempest were destroyed, they would undoubtedly seek vengeance." The knights accompanying Hinata visibly swallowed at my words. It was bad enough that I had ties to demon lords, but the prospect of them retaliating against Western nations if I were harmed was a sobering thought. Even the church would struggle to withstand the wrath of 3 demon lords. "That was close," one of the knights muttered, clearly realizing the implications of their actions. "Killing me would indirectly provoke the wrath of powerful entities." "While that may be true," Hinata interjected, her tone serious, "the fact remains that Tempest's influence on human nations is expanding. The association with demon lords raises concerns that you are encroaching upon human territories, albeit not through typical demon lord tactics." "Fair enough, but my goal has always been to build a nation that fosters unity," I countered, trying to appeal to reason. "If that's not possible due to the teachings of the Church and humanity's fear of monsters, I'm willing to halt all progress and make do with what we have. With established trade routes and alliances with neutral human territories like Dwargon, we could sustain ourselves. Bloomend could still act as intermediaries for humans wanting our products without directly involving us." After further discussion, an armistice between Tempest and the Church was agreed upon. For now, we would halt all expansion towards Western nations until Hinata was convinced we posed no threat. "I doubt the Council would risk further hostilities with you. Knowing you have the backing of demon lords," Hinata concluded before bidding us farewell. Her army departed from Tempest peacefully. Now that that's settled, I turned to the exhausted children, who had managed to evade their escorts. "How did you 5 get onto the battlefield?" I distinctly ordered everyone to evacuate. "It was my idea, Sensei." Chloe, not as tired as the others, stepped forward. "I planned to sneak away alone, but they found me." It seemed their escape had coincided with the mass evacuation to Eurazania, evading the watchful eyes of the hobgoblins. The poor goblins were probably frantically searching for them now. "Rimuru-san, focus!" A sharp voice broke through the chaos, pulling me back into the present moment. I swiftly dodged a sword swipe that had come dangerously close to my chest, stepping back several meters to gain some distance. "Chloe, you've gotten stronger," I praised her, watching as she sparred with me. It had been years since they arrived in Tempest, and despite everything, the children had chosen to stay, always vigilant and protective of our nation. Indeed, Chloe had grown significantly taller, perhaps even taller than me now. Gale, too, was a towering figure compared to his younger days. It made me nostalgic, remembering when they were just children under my care. "What's with that face, Rimuru-san?" Yuki's voice cut in as he stood nearby, casually munching on food from one of the stalls. With the children refusing to leave Tempest, Yuki had taken on the role of visiting them regularly, a task he seemed to enjoy, especially given our nation's renowned cuisine. Ha ha ha, well, it can't be helped. They've grown a lot over the years, Yuki chuckled, glancing over at the teenagers who were now engaging in lively banter. Yuki-san, let's spar. Kenya's voice rang out as he suddenly brandished his sword, not bothering to wait for Yuki's consent before launching into an attack. Yuki effortlessly sidestepped, finishing his food before engaging in the playful combat. Meanwhile, Sue appeared beside me, his expression serious as he delivered urgent news. Rimuru-sama, urgent news, he whispered, prompting me to signal Yuki to follow me. Gathering everyone for a meeting, we swiftly discussed the situation at hand. Everyone, the feared invasion from the Eastern Empire is underway. They plan to rush through the Jura forest with a large army, I announced gravely. Murmurs of concern and determination rippled through the gathered group. I had hoped this day wouldn't come, but it seemed inevitable. Perhaps they had waited this long, confident in Veldora's demise. We need to strategize our defense, I continued, scanning the faces of my subordinates who were now focused on the impending threat. Detailed reports on our army's readiness and potential support from allies were reviewed. Unfortunately, Dwargon couldn't move its forces as they were already dealing with a detachment heading towards them. Eurazania offered a modest force of around 1,000 beastmen, but they too needed to safeguard their own territories, a gesture we appreciated but ultimately declined. With our plans set, everyone moved swiftly into action, preparing and positioning themselves accordingly. Benimaru and Hakuro took charge of organizing our defenses, while Sue kept a vigilant watch on the enemy's movements. Shuna, alongside Rigor and Rigord, coordinated the evacuation of civilians to safer areas within the domain of the Dryads, a task that required careful planning and execution. Don't worry, Rimuru-sama will defeat them all, Shion declared passionately to the citizens of Tempest, her words bolstering their spirits amidst the tension. As days passed and the evacuation continued, I found myself wandering the streets of Tempest, surveying everything we had built over the years. Amidst the calm before the storm, Chloe rushed toward me, her expression fraught with emotion. Rimuru-san. Chloe sobbed softly, clinging to my clothes. It seemed she still harbored deep concerns for our safety, unwilling to leave my side. It was a familiar scene, a reminder of the responsibilities and bonds that tied us together. Chloe, don't cry, I reassured her gently prying her hands away from me. Retrieving Shizu-san's mask, I placed it sideways on her head, just as I often did when it wasn't covering my own face. You can keep this. Don't cry. I promise I won't die. A faint smile touched her lips as she nodded silently, holding back her tears. Rimuru-sama, it's time. Benimaru's voice broke through the moment, prompting me to bid farewell to Chloe with one last embrace before setting off. The ensuing battle was nothing short of disastrous. While I had faced armies before, Orc lords, Falmouth, even the Crusaders, this was different. Casualties were inevitable, and the sight of fallen comrades weighed heavily on my heart. Explosions from tanks, fires from aerial vehicles, and the haunting cries of the dying echoed across the battlefield, a stark reminder of the brutality of war. Hovering in the air, I targeted the blimp-like vehicles that hindered our movements, unleashing my power to bring them crashing down. Yet, I soon found myself weakened by an unexpected attack, a beam or sonic wave that disrupted my magicules from within. Alert! Interference with magicules detected. Use resistance, I commanded, struggling against the debilitating effects. Yet, even with my efforts, the strain was overwhelming. Warning. Resistance insufficient. Recommend retreat and recovery. Reluctantly, I withdrew from the aerial engagement, descending to the ground where the true horrors of the battlefield unfolded. The High Orcs, acting as our front line, bore the brunt of the enemy's onslaught. Tanks and blimps relentlessly targeted our forces, pushing us to our limits. Gather the fallen, I muttered under my breath, using magic to summon thousands of enemy corpses. With a solemn incantation, I summoned greater demons from the gathered bodies, a grim necessity to bolster our dwindling forces. As chaos raged around me, A notable demon with black hair streaked with red and gold stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Kufufufu. Ah, I've awaited this moment, he chuckled darkly, a malevolent aura surrounding him. May I serve you from this day forth? Later, I dismissed him curtly, pointing toward the looming blimps. First, deal with those reinforcements. With a bow, the demon and his cohorts vanished into battle, engaging the enemy with ruthless efficiency. Meanwhile, I returned to our base of operations where Benimaru and Hakuro strategized amidst the chaos. The wreckage of defeated tanks had been piled as makeshift barriers, offering some respite against the relentless onslaught. Rimuru-sama. Benimaru greeted me with a bow, exhaustion etched on his face alongside that of our weary soldiers. No need for formalities. I waved off his concerns, reassuming my human form and joining their planning. Our strategy focused on the high orcs acting as walls and bait, while goblin riders launched flank attacks. Hakuro and Sue would support the riders, Geld continued to bolster the orcs, and Xian maintained her relentless assault. Beside me, Ranga recuperated from expending his magicules, having decimated a significant portion of the enemy's tanks. Despite his injuries, his loyalty and determination remained unwavering. Venturing deeper into enemy lines, I sought out the commander responsible for orchestrating the onslaught. We've got a disaster-class enemy incoming. A soldier, who appeared to be a general based on his attire, shouted to the person beside him. Calgurio-sama, what should we do? The man known as Calgurio, wearing the imperial military uniform with an eye patch over his left eye, a thin mustache, and black hair slicked back, stood firm. Minutes, can you face him? Calgurio turned to his right-hand man, who wore an elegant suit unlike the standard military uniform. Minutes drew his sword and looked at me. It shall be done. With his words, I felt a force and dodged instinctively. Notice. A gravitational force has been sensed, confirmed to be generated by the individual minutes. Caution is advised. Thanks, great sage, I muttered, feeling a slight pull toward minutes. It was weak, likely because I could resist it with my physical capabilities. Minutes and I exchanged sword swings while he invoked a force field centered on himself. Repulsion and attraction interplayed, repelling those who tried to approach him while manipulating the force to pin them to the ground. It's getting heavy, but it's bearable, I thought, clenching my teeth as I continued exchanging blows with minutes. Despite being handicapped, my rigorous sword training allowed me to injure my opponent. Fascinating, to be able to move so freely within my field, Minutes commented, holding his wounded shoulder. While I would love to fight you alone, I don't have the time for it, Kansas. I felt an attack from behind and jumped to escape the force field. A man smoking a cigarette grinned as a large five-tailed beast roared in front of him. You must be that monster. Rimuru, he laughed as the beast attacked with its tail. Planning to escape, I sensed Minutes pulling me to the ground, keeping me just enough to be unable to escape the attack. As I prepared to receive the blow, Xian, who had been slaughtering soldiers on the battlefield, appeared and blocked the attack, sending her flying. Xian, I shouted, finally managing to move. I ran toward her as Benimaru and Geld arrived with reinforcements, finally breaking through the army. It was a suicide mission to take out the head of the army, pushing through until the commander was dead. Rimuru-sama, let us take care of them, Benimaru said, facing Minutes while Geld and his high orcs confronted Kansas's beast. Thanks, Benimaru. I rushed to the enemy commander, Calgurio, who had been barking orders and watching the fight. I slashed through the soldiers blocking my way, their lives be damned. I needed to end this war as soon as possible, too many had already died. Shit. Calgurio tried to block my swing, but his sword flew out of his grip. The soldiers near him froze when I looked their way. I swung to decapitate Calgurio, but a sword blocked it. Krishna, the large man shouted, and then, alert! Life-threatening attack incoming. As soon as I heard the notification, I took to the sky. Looking down, I saw another man who had just swung his sword near where I had been. He could fly too. Krishna, as his comrade called him, was a very talented swordsman, comparable to Minutes. Krishna's swings were faster and much harder, likely due to his armor. Confirmed. Legendary grade armor detected. Wow, legendary grade armor. Something similar to Hinata's moonlight. I thought. Mine just turned legendary. Probably because it hasn't experienced much use in real combat. Despite my thoughts racing with the help of thought acceleration, my body couldn't laze around. Krishna was a real fighter, silently focused on eliminating me. Are we sure this isn't the final boss? This guy is so strong, I even need great sage's help with fighting. As the clash continued for minutes, I noticed Benimaru and the rest heavily injured and surrounded. Shit, I got distracted, I muttered. A female wizard fired an attack toward me, which I dodged, but Krishna took that as an opportunity to strike. The sword made contact, and I lost an arm. Ah! I shouted involuntarily, pain resistance failing to work. That hurts. I held the area where I lost my arm, barely able to dodge Krishna's relentless attacks. I was open and vulnerable, full of slashes. Support fire from the nearby wizard forced me to maintain concentration on two opponents. As the fight raged below, airships above began crashing to the ground. Loud explosions echoed each time one made contact, and the lack of screams from within indicated no survivors. The black primordial demon sensed something was wrong and quickly returned to the ground, heading straight for the army's commander. He saw the monsters fighting strong enemies, disadvantaged. Cough. While blood didn't spill, I felt the pain of being stabbed and reflexively coughed. The summoned archdemon, for the first time, felt fear. Imaginary sweat formed from the danger I faced. He flew down as fast as he could, but suddenly found himself entangled in binding chains made of monster hair, designed specifically for demons. An archdemon? A soldier stated in surprise as he and his comrades restrained Noir. "Ha! We are the Empire's Imperial Guards. We kill your kind for a living," boasted another soldier as they moved to kill him. Breaking from the chains as fast as he could, Noir shouted, "Rimuru-sama," and rushed to save me, killing the Imperial Guards in his path. I hope my eyes conveyed the message before I lost consciousness. Rimuru-sama. That was all I heard before everything went black, unable to discern who had shouted or if they all had.